Hi guys, my name is MD Shahajada Imran. I will make a video about a keyword-driven framework using UFT. It is also called QTP or Micro Focus UFT. So using that particular tool, I will create a keyword-driven framework. Before I actually created the keyword-driven framework, so I will demonstrate or explain that framework. Before I explain, I want to talk about the framework in a general. So framework in definition, and that is the book's definition, that is how it is written in the book, that a framework is a guideline like coding standards, test data handling, object repository treatments, etc., which when followed produce beneficial outcomes like increased code reusability and higher portability, reduce development cost, etc. So in simple words, framework is creating automation scripts and all the necessary things that needs to create automation scripts, creating all those things and managing in a nice manner so that it gives some benefit is framework. So there are different types of frameworks like linear scripting, functional decomposition, data-driven testing framework, keyword-driven testing framework, hybrid framework. So there are different types of framework. So if the test data is derived from external file, then that is data-driven framework. If the keywords are derived from external file, then that is keyword-driven framework. And if the both keywords and test data both are derived from external files, then that is hybrid framework. So I will talk about a keyword-driven framework. So I open UFT. Before I open UFT, I talk about the framework first. So under C drive, I have created the framework. This is called my framework. Now this framework goes to keyword-driven framework category. I have created a framework folder called my framework. Under this folder, I have created additional folder, one folder to manage the driver script, and then another folder to manage reusable function libraries, another folder to store tests, another folder to store shared object repositories, and another folder to store result. We can have more folders that I will talk about later. Right now there are 5 folders in this framework, and the driver script is under this folder. So I have already launched UFT and loaded the driver script. This is the driver script that I loaded, and this is the function library. This is the function library. In the function library, there are 4 functions. One function that open IE browser and navigate Bing homepage. Another function that search a text in the search box. Another function that captures the search result, and another function that closes the browser. So there are 4 functions, reusable functions in the function library. And in the object repository, if I open the object repository, then I will see a few objects that I stored in the object repository. So these are the objects. There are like 3 objects in the object repository. The objective of this video is to demonstrate the keyword driven framework. So I tried to keep it as simple as possible. So I kept 3 objects in the object repository. So 3 objects in the object repository, 4 functions in the function library, and the driver script. And the tests. If I go, the keywords and the tests can be stored in an Excel file or in the database like Oracle, MySQL, SQL Server. But for this particular framework, I stored in Excel. So I open the Excel file to show. So in this Excel file, there are 2 sheets. One sheet for test cases, another sheet for test steps. In test case, there are 4 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4. One column has the test case ID, other column has brief description, another column has execute, whether it will be executed or not, and another column has the result. And there are 3 scenarios. One scenario, 3 test cases. One test case will test users are able to search my name in the Bing website. Another test case is users are able to search rows in the Bing website, and another one, users are able to search pen in Bing website. So there are 3 test cases, and there are total 12, 2 to 13. So there are total 12 test steps. Out of 12, first 4 are for first test case, second 4 are for second test case, and the third 4 for third test case. So these are the test steps. Now I will explain the framework, the driver script. What this driver script will do. So first, I have declared a few variables. One variable is called testCaseID. Another one is test result, and then I, J, R, M. These are variables that will be. These are some variables that I declared in the beginning of the scripting, and this will be used later in this driver script. Now what this line will do, this line will, once this line executes, there are 2 sheets in the data table. One is global and one is action. There will be one more here. That name would be T test cases. And once this one executes, there will be one more. That name would be T steps. Now let me open a previously executed result. This one. So this one and this one will be created. Once this line executes, this will be created, T test case here, and once this line executes, this will be created. So these 2 will appear as a third one and fourth one. This one first, this one second. So third one and fourth one, these 2 sheets will appear here, which we right now we are not able to see, because there are 2 types of data sheet, runtime data sheet and design time data sheet. So those comes in the runtime data sheet. So these 2 will appear, and then once this line executes, then this data will be imported from here to here. So this three this three will appear here. Once this line executes, then from here all these 12 steps and this heading, these are the headers. So headers and those 12 steps, everything will be imported from this test file, Excel file, to the imaginary folder here, like this one, like this one. T steps, that's an imaginary test sheet, imaginary test sheet that is here, imaginary test sheet. So once this line executes, the entire line executes, that imaginary test sheet will have data, and this 13 one header and 12 rows of data will be there. Now if I this line will get the row count of the test cases and store in this variable. So there are how many test cases? 3, 1, 2, 3 test cases. So it will store 3 here, and this message box will display how many rows are in the test cases sheet. How many rows are in the test cases sheet? This test cases sheet. And then this line will also display how many rows are in the test steps sheets. So let me run until this, and then I will explain remaining later. Let me run until from here to till this. So I want to run until this and see what it says. I explained that this one will add imaginary sheet here, and this one will add another imaginary sheet here, and those two sheets will be filled with data by executing these 2 lines of code, and the data will be imported from these 2 sheets. And then this 2 line will display how many rows are in the test set, how many rows are in the test how many rows are in the T cases sheet, and how many rows in the T steps sheet. T cases sheet and T steps sheet. So I close all the Excel sheets. Close the unnecessary folders. And I run it. It says there are total 3 test cases in Excel book. That means it is running line number 16. If I click on OK, then it will execute the line number 17. Now it's executing line number 17, saying that there are total 12 test steps in the Excel book, which we previously checked. Okay, and I will stop executing. Stop execution so that I can continue explaining. Okay, and these are the Now I will be executing this for loop. I will explain what is this for loop does. This is the for loop. This is the for loop. So for loop will execute the first for loop. There are two for loops, this one and this is another one. There are two for loops. This one is called outer for loop, this one is called inner for loop. So outer for loop will iterate through test cases. Let me open the sheet again. This is the test. Okay, so now it will iterate 3 times, 1 2 3. We have found that in this line we have found that this one we stored 3 here. We found that there are 3 test cases, 1 2 3 test cases. We found that there are 3 test cases, and we stored the value 3, the integer value 3 in this variable I test case, and so it will run 3 times, 1 2 3 times. The outer loop will run 1 to 3 times. The first iteration, second iteration, and third iteration. There will be 3 iterations, and this for loop, the outer for loop, will run 3 times. First time when it runs, this line will set the current row. This line will set the current row. It will set, first it will set this row. In the first iteration it will set this row, in the second iteration it will set this row, in the third iteration it will set this row. So first iteration, when the first iteration is running, it will set this row. Now this row is selected by this line of, by executing this line of code. Now this if condition will check, it will capture the data of execute column header of T. So it will capture this data. It will, this is the execute column header. It will capture this data and check if the y, if the value is y. It says if the value is y, it will capture whatever the value under this column. This is the execute column. Whatever the value under this column, execute column, it will take and compare with y. If it is y, that's the comparison this line will do. If this line will take the value and check if it is y or not. If it is y, then it will execute this everything. If it's not y, then it will end if, and it will go next. So that is this line. This line will do that. So in this particular scenario, it found that for the iteration 1, y is 1. So it should go to, if the y is 1, it will go to this second sheet. It will go to the second sheet. It will go to the second sheet and capture data. This line will capture So once it is y, before it goes to that, once if it is y, it will capture this value, and then it will remember this value, that the test case ID columns, this row's value is TC1. The script will remember this value TC1, and then it will go to next sheet. It will remember here that the value is TC1, and then it will go to the next sheet and get the count, how many rows are there. So it found that there are 12 count. It will go here and it will count from here to here, total 12 count. So now it will, the driver script will run this second outer loop, actually inner loop. It will run the inner loop and it will run 12 times. It will run 12 times from here to here. It will run 12 times. First time it will check this row. Second time it will check this row. Third time it will check this row. Till it will check 12 times. First time it will check if the value, this one TC1 and the value here TC1 matches or not. If matches, then it will call this function. This is a keyword. It will call this keyword. So it will run 12 times. This is here. It will run 1 to 12 times. First time it will set the current row. It will set the current row, means that it will select this one. If the set current row means it will select this one. If set current row is 1, that means it will select this one. If it says set current row here is 2, that means it will select this one. Select this one. If the value is 3 here, then it will select this one. If the value is 4 here, it will select this one. So in this line, when the first iteration is running, this line will select this row, and then it will compare this value, whether this value is TC1 or not. Whether this value is TC1 or not. We have the script, remember that S test case ID is TC1. It captured from this line and stored in this variable. This variable has TC1, so this variable has the value TC1. So if this value is TC1 and this value is TC1, then it will call a function. Since this is TC1, it will call this open browser keyword. Once it calls this open browser keyword, it will call this function, and whatever value this function returns, that will be stored in this variable. And then it will end select. Once it end selects, and it will store the pass or fail result here. It will store here pass and fail. And then once it restores pass and fail, it will come out from this first iteration, and it will run again for the second iteration. This is the for loop. This is the for loop that ends here. So this is the for loop. So once the first iteration finish, in the first iteration, it will capture this value and check if the value is TC1 or not. If 1, then it will call this keyword, and whatever value this keyword has a function, that function will be called, and then whatever value that function returns will be saved here. Function can return either pass or fail, so it will here return pass or fail. And then when the second iteration runs, it will select this record. When the second iteration runs, so when the second iteration runs, it will total run 12 times. When the second iteration runs, this value changes to 2, and then the script selects this row, and then it will capture this value and check if the value is TC1 or not. It will capture this value by here and check if the value is TC1 or not, comparing with this one. If the value matches, then it will call this keyword. It will call this keyword. this keyword, and once this keyword gets executed, this function will be called, and it will write here pass or fail. And when the third iteration runs, for the inner for loop, it will select the first row from the Excel sheet, third row from the Excel sheet. This third row. It will select the third row from the Excel sheet, and it will do 12 times. 12 times it will iterate, and 12 times it will check this value. If matches, then it will call this keyword. If doesn't matches, then it will leave. And then and at the end, we will just send the result to a result folder. In the framework, there are few folders. In the result folder, it will be saved here. So let me run it, the entire script. So it should run first scenario, first test case, and the third test case. It shouldn't run second test case because no is selected. So it should only run first test case and third test case. Let me close this Excel sheet and run it. First test case will launch the Bing what happened on 21. Let me check. Somehow the value got changed with if. If. I will run again. While I was explaining the driver script, somehow this value got changed to FI instead of IFF. So I will rerun again. So it's loading. I need to close this before I run it, before I'm able to run it. Okay, so we run again. Is there are total 3 test cases in Excel sheet, which is true. Okay. There are total test steps in Excel sheet, that is also true. Okay. So it's opening the browser, and then it will navigate to Bing homepage. Okay, the internet is okay. Internet is there, so it's taking time to load. It says connecting. It normally doesn't happen, but it's the browser Internet Explorer is taking time to load Bing website. I'm gonna have to rerun because the script is taking a long time than usual to load the Bing homepage. Internet connection is on. Okay, there's no problem with the internet connection. Waiting for this, whatever it is, it's taking longer time than usual to load. Okay, it loaded. It entered my name on the Bing search box. It clicked on the search button. Search result got displayed. It highlighted the search result, captured in the result folder, and close the browser. Now it will run the third test case, which is the same thing. It will check. So the first test case execution complete. Second test case it shouldn't execute. Third test case it should execute. So it launched the Internet Explorer browser. Now it will navigate to the Bing homepage again. And it entered a pen in the search box. Click on the search button for the result. It will highlight the result and then capture the result. Highlighted and captured and close the browser. Now execution completed. Now I will expand and see what happened. What happened with the execution. I will expand everything. For the first iteration, for the first test case, it is entered my name and the result it got this much. And then second time it entered the word pen and it got the result here. Okay, that is here. Now we will go to the framework folder framework folder and go to the result, test execution result folder. Since there are two, I will get which one executed last. We'll sort by the date. This one executed last. I'll open this one. So here you can see first test case has 4 steps which executed, and all those 4 steps passes. Second test case didn't execute, and that also has 4 steps. And the third test case did execute, and it also has 4 pass status. The first one executed, pass, and the second one didn't execute, the third one execute. There are total 3 test cases. Now that is the framework we have. If I go here, I will go to my framework again. So this is the framework, and by definition, if the keywords are derived from external file like Excel file, Oracle database, MySQL server, or any other external file, if the keywords are derived from external file, then that is keyword driven framework. In this scenario, these keywords are derived from external file, but this framework is not hybrid framework, because for this framework to become hybrid, the test data has to be derived from external file too. But in this framework, test data is not derived from external file. Only keywords are derived from the external file. Of course, the test scripts are also written in Excel file, but the keywords are derived from external file. The test data is hard-coded. Test data is hard-coded. Test data hard-coded in 2 different places. In the function level, I hard-coded test data in the function level. Here I put Bing, but that makes this keyword not hybrid framework, not data-driven framework. Also, this framework is only keyword-driven framework, because I intentionally put one value here in the function library. In the function library, I put one value. One value is hard-coded out of these 4 functions. Therefore, this framework cannot be considered as either data-driven framework or hybrid framework, because in both scenarios, in hybrid framework, test data has to be derived from external file, whether it is Excel or database. Test data has to be derived, has to be separated from the driver script, kept outside of the driver script, and derived from external file like Excel file or databases. Since test data is hard-coded in the function library, therefore we cannot tell this framework data-driven or hybrid. And also, test data is hard-coded in the driver script level. Here, the test data is hard-coded here. Test data is hard-coded here. Test data is hard-coded here. Therefore, this framework is considered only keyword-driven framework, because the keywords are derived from Excel file. Test data is not derived from Excel file. Therefore, we cannot tell this framework as hybrid framework, or we cannot tell this framework as data-driven framework, because by definition, a framework can be called hybrid only if test data and keyword both are derived from external file. And all hybrid frameworks are data-driven and keyword driven, but not all keyword driven frameworks are hybrid, or not all data driven frameworks are hybrid. That's so this is keyword driven framework that I explained. Intentionally I put I hard-coded these three values in the driver script level. These three values I hard-coded in the driver script level so that I can claim this framework is not hybrid framework, and this framework is not data-driven framework. This framework is only keyword-driven framework. Also, there is one more value that I hard-coded here. So I will modify or advance this framework so that I can claim this framework is hybrid framework. So that I will do later, and I will make another video for the hybrid framework where this test data will be derived from Excel file too. I probably add one more column here for the test data and derive from here, or maybe I add another sheet and keep test data here and derive from here. Once I derive test data from the Excel sheet, then I can claim this framework is hybrid. Until then it's a keyword driven framework only. And that's about it. And we can make this framework more organized by keeping more things here. Like we can have one more folder for recovery scenario, and keep all the recovery scenarios here. We can have one more folder for requirement traceability matrix. We can have one more folder for test plan. So we can add more folders to keep more necessary things that needed for the automation scripting. So this framework, in a nutshell, this framework is a keyword driven framework. This framework is not data driven or hybrid driven because test data is not derived from Excel file. So I will make another video on where I will derive both keywords and test data from Excel file so that I can claim that it's data keyword driven framework, hybrid framework. For now, this is a keyword driven framework. Thank you guys for watching.